Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James Strong, joined once again by my co-host, Cody Tanner. Cody, how are you on this happy birthday episode of Steelers by the Lake? That's the best thing we got going today.
Yeah,
it's not even that good.
Greatest thing. Not even that good. It's just a day. Doing well. Work this morning. Now we're gonna record a podcast, talk about a Steelers loss. What more is there to be excited about, James? How are you today, James? How are you?
Doing good, man. Got the day done. Got my arm ripped out at PT, and ready to move on with the day. You know.
Yep. No, I hear you. Yeah. So before we talk about this miserable excuse of a football game that the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Philadelphia Eagles played, specifically the Steelers played, we have some news. Montravius Adams did get activated from the IR. And then so did offensive tackle Calvin Anderson got placed on IR. So those guys kind of swap positions basically. And then we did get to see Montravius Adams in this game. We'll get more into that before just in a little bit. James, you want to go over inactives for the game?
Yep, our inactives, some of them no surprise, like the usual, Kyle Allen being the number 3 quarterback. Larry Ogunjobi, as we feared, was out with that groin injury. Deshaun Elliott out with his hamstring injury, George Pickens out with his hamstring, and then Corey Trice, the healthy scratch. So Corey Trice and Kyle Allen, the only healthy guys on that list.
Gotcha. Yeah, unfortunate to see Deshaun Elliott and George Pickens again. Those two guys are the guys that I was really excited about, and we really need apparently to get some games and get some dubs and get some big hits and big catches, but. Anyways, James, let's talk about this game. A crapshoot to say the least. I mean, oh my Lanta, this was horrible from the get-go. Before we even get into any of this, James, I'm going to share the stat of our first 5 drives in this game. We had a total of negative 19 yards. That is miserable at any level of football and should be non-acceptable. But this is the NFL, and we put up negative 19 yards on 5 drives. That's just insane. I can credit some of that to maybe execution, but I think a large part of this is just the play calling. I've been having an issue with it every single game. Even the games we've won, we're coming out flat. We're coming out boring. We're coming out with no aggression or assertiveness of moving the ball downfield and trying to score the football. It feels like we're just trying to see, hey, how's the defense going to play us? Let's take the first quarter to figure it out. No, you got to come out and play your style of football. And unfortunately, we're not playing any football, it feels like, in the first half, at least of this game.
Yeah, and I'm sick of seeing third down where it's either a deep bomb 40 yards down the field or a dump off to the running back because Russ doesn't want to go through his progressions and try to hit somebody who might be 7 to 10 yards and get a first down. Really sick of seeing that, man. It was bad last week, but they were able to still pull off the win. This week, you weren't going to get away with that against the Eagles, man. Just not happening. They're way too good of a team. Before we get too far down this rabbit hole, because this is not going to be the most positive episode in the world based off of how this game went, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors real quick here. So programming on Steelers by the Lake podcast is sponsored by Edinburgh Hotel Bar, located at 100 Meadville Street in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania, providing lunch and dinner specials daily, as well as online ordering and full-service catering. Additional details are available at edinburghhotelbar.tripod.com.
Yeah, big shout out to them. That's where I was for the game this week. It was not an enjoyable time. It was very sad, depressing, and it was raining outside. It was just horrible. Did not have fun. Let's put it that way. James, I don't even know. I know we're going to do the normal breakdown and talk about the specific players and stuff, but man, I don't feel like there's any amount of frustration that I can air out here that would justify my frustration or like quantify my frustration with this team.
Yeah.
There's too much talent, even without George Pickens on this offense, to only put up 13 points. There's too much talent on this defense to, I mean, don't get me wrong, 27 is not bad for Philly. I'm curious to see what else they like the other amount of points they put up this year, but it is just wildly, wildly frustrating to see Pittsburgh come out and fall flat like this. I mean, we had 56 yards rushing as a team. We only had 107 yards passing as a team. This is just sad to say. I mean, we didn't clear 160 or 170 yards total offense. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, you should have that by halftime pretty easy. And instead, by halftime, they were struggling to move the ball, really. I'm with you on my frustration. The last 2 weeks, the offense has just looked inept. And it's no coincidence that George Pickens has not been healthy enough to play in either one of these games. So this is very troubling. It's something that we were worried about in the preseason. Would the number 2, number 3, and beyond wide receivers be able to make the plays and sustain the offense and get open? And would Russ feel comfortable, or Justin Fields, whoever it ended up being, would they feel comfortable throwing to these guys? Would they be able to move the offense? The answer is no. Without George Pickens on the field, the offense looks completely awful. And you cannot allow your offense to be that one-dimensional that when one guy is out, you don't know what to do. Even if your starting quarterback is out, you should be able to at least have some kind of sustainable offense that gives you a fighting chance against 2/3 of the teams in the league with your backup quarterback. When your number 1 wide receiver is out and your offense can't even get a first down, can't take advantage of turnovers on the other team's inside like their 30-yard line. Like, there were so many opportunities in this game that all the offense had to do was just get a couple first downs and you're inside the 10 because of awesome plays by special teams and defense. And they couldn't take advantage of it in any way. So
no, the drive that
beyond frustrating.
Those 2 drives, James, the combined 2 drives that we had turnovers, which one wasn't even a drive. One was special teams, a punt, forced fumble.
Yep. Mark Robinson.
Combined -9 yards between those 2 drives.
Yeah. Pitiful. What are we doing?
After turnovers. Yeah. You're not taking advantage of the team, of the defense and the position that the defense and special teams is putting you in. Defense and special teams played great. And I don't want to, we can bash the defense a little bit or talk, poorly of them. They allowed 401 yards. Like, that's an issue. They allowed 26 first downs. They couldn't get off the field, but that was just good play calling by Philly, in all honesty. And really bad play calling and even execution by Pittsburgh on offense and sometimes defense. I thought there was a 3rd and long that we're playing a zone defense and you're allowing someone to come up and sit within 2 yards of the first down or 3 yards, and then they make the catch, turn, and basically just run a half step and they get the first down. Like, I don't understand what's happening. And then you have a Landon Roberts trying to guard a tight end or early in the game, and that wasn't going to work. Just a lack of awareness, it felt like, to what, like, I don't know who's watching film. I don't know who's breaking this stuff down for the offense and the defense, but we should have come, and I'm not trying to attack Mike Tomlin here, because I do think Mike Tomlin does well as a coach. I again drastically agree with my one buddy. I think it was my buddy Jay, who said Mike is a player's coach. He coaches well with players. He doesn't coach well with coaches. That's why we haven't seen super successful coaching under him so far. And like, at this point, you got to get on your guys about watching film, about breaking down, studying. Like, what is it? What's happening that we can allow? Like, they had 10 first down rushing. We had 9 total first downs. Like, somewhere, and I felt like at halftime, I was like, okay, like, we got to make a change. We only had 2 drives in the second half. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I said, part of that's on Philly for controlling the pace of the game and controlling the ball. But geez Louise, I felt like we were just unprepared for Philly completely.
Yeah, I didn't like how things played out at all. I thought there were certain players in this game that you wish other people would have been available to play. I thought Dan Moore had an absolutely atrocious game. Was getting beat left and right. In fact, one of the sacks is going to be registered as a Broderick Jones sack when I thought Broderick Jones actually did an excellent job on the play, pushed his man up the arc past where Russell Wilson was supposed to be, but Dan Moore got bulldozed, just got shoved straight back in quarterback's lap, which gave Russ two choices, either go forward or backwards. He chose backwards, and Broderick's guy got him. But Broderick actually pushed him exactly where he was supposed to push him past where Russ was supposed to be. But Dan got beat so quickly that Russ had to move out of it and in the way of someone that he didn't see coming because it was behind him. So just too much of that in this game. I saw Isaac Seumalo getting owned and driven into the backfield over and over, just looking more and more like he's nearing the end of his career. And I felt like the only offensive linemen of the five that looked good in this game were Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick. Broderick Jones did have some good snaps here and there. And I even like how Dan Moore got called for a penalty at one time, and we saw Broderick Jones come over to Dan Moore to calm him down and tell him, hey, man, relax. We're going to be all right. I really like what we're seeing out of Broderick Jones from a leadership standpoint. He's doing a great job of sticking up for teammates when the crap hits the fan and calming guys down when they're getting frustrated with how they're being refereed. So from a maturity standpoint, I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing from Broderick Jones, and I feel like he's doing decent. But man, it's too much. Russ is running for his life back there. And he's not able to get into a rhythm. And I felt like they finally got into a rhythm late in the second quarter. They got a second field goal, and they got the touchdown to Pat Freiermuth, and things were starting to move a little bit. In the third quarter, they came out flat and couldn't move the ball at all. And like you mentioned, they only got two opportunities, and that was it. Two possessions in an entire half of football. They only possessed the ball for 20 minutes and 8 seconds.
Yep. In a 60-minute game.
That is incredibly lopsided. You don't win when you have that bad time of possession.
Yeah, in the second half, in those 30 minutes, we held the ball for under five of those. It was, just over 5. It was under 6. But that's insane.
This game ranked for Pittsburgh as like their third worst in team history in time of possession.
That doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah, because it was that one-sided. And I'm not even mad about the fact that they couldn't stop the tush push because nobody can. So that is what it is. But Dante Jackson was just awful in this game, man.
Jackson was horrible.
He got cooked every single play. I mean, it was an easy decision for Jalen Hurts on who to throw the ball to. Just whoever Dante Jackson is covering, that's who you throw it at. And it was no shock to me that the second half, the bleeding kind of stopped as far as throwing the football when Joey Porter Jr. started matching up with A.J. Brown a lot more. We started seeing some pass breakups, some incomplete passes. Joey even almost came away with an interception on one where A.J. Brown basically tackled him before the ball got there. And
could have been called.
Yeah, very, very easily. I feel like if A.J. didn't interfere with him, that's easily being intercepted. But just frustrating all around. All around.
And let's get into the other part of the game that was frustrating was the refereeing. I mean, you had a scuffle in the end zone that had Philadelphia Eagles guys throwing hands and punches, for lack of a better word or better explanation. And only only had 2 Pittsburgh Steelers guys end up with penalties on that. And that is insane. And if you saw Mike Tomlin during the game, you saw very clearly what he said, which was get the F away from me. And so as much as I do believe that the refereeing was very, very poor in this game, like there was that penalty that should have gone both ways. There was the pass interference against Joey Porter that wasn't called. There was the penalty that you're going to talk about with Connor Hayward that should have given us a first down, but unfortunately the ref said no. JK, it happened after the play. There were a lot of things that could have gone one way and could have gone another way. But unfortunately, that's just the way it fell. I can't take enough blame for this loss off the Steelers. Like, this was our game, and we fumbled the ball completely. So I don't know if there's Anything else you want to talk about with that specifically? I know you want to talk about the Connor Hayward issue in that penalty, but I can't take enough blame off Pittsburgh in this game, as bad as the refs were. Pittsburgh beat themselves this game drastically.
Yeah. So, like, I want to specifically talk about, first off, the melee in the end zone. So Darnell Washington, as a run blocker on a play, got locked in one-on-one with, I think it was Slay, one of their corners, and drove him 30 yards down the field and slammed him into the back of the end zone against the wall, right? The referees had not blown a whistle, so the play is still happening at this point. Now, is out of the back of the end zone into the stands and against the wall legal? I don't know how that's spelled out as far as the rule book, but watching the replay, the ref had not thrown the flag yet. He didn't throw a flag until all hell broke loose. So Darnell lets go of the guy. The guy immediately swings on him and hits him in the helmet. That's when we see Calvin Austin III come in and check him because he's not going to let the guy just punch Darnell like that. And the only two people that get penalized in this are Darnell Washington, who walked away after blocking him, and Calvin Austin III, who basically just stopped the guy from continuing to punch his teammate. And in the process, multiple more punches were thrown. And the explanation that Mike Tomlin was given during the game when he asked about it was no punches were thrown.
Yeah.
That's what
this
Mike
is the play
Tomlin
we're
was
showing
told.
right here.
Yep. Ready for it? There's your punches.
You had 3 thrown before.
And connected with
3 punches thrown. Yep. And then Calvin Austin comes in and Calvin Austin gets punched.
Yeah, he punches Calvin Austin next. This dude threw 4 or 5 punches, and he wasn't the only Eagle to do so.
Well, the guy that hit Austin wasn't even the same guy. So Slay was the one hitting Darnell, and then Calvin Austin comes up and pushes a linebacker, it looks like, or a safety, and then that safety punches him. And it's just insane. If you saw the view that we got to see from someone in the stands who was luckily recorded that, it's just insane how Pittsburgh was the only one penalized on that when the refs are all standing there watching.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 punches were thrown directly in front of a referee, and Pittsburgh was the only one penalized.
And no Steelers threw any punches, and it was as clear as can be. So it absolutely blew my mind. I was expecting offsetting penalties play.
Yeah.
And I would have accepted
offsetting penalties and even someone to get like a, that's their one penalty towards ejection or whatever.
Yep. And they didn't do any of that.
No.
They should be getting some fines for that. They should be. The NFL should be reviewing that. We'll hear about that like Wednesday or Thursday typically. So we might be able to tell you about that on the show later on in the week. But just grossly mishandled by the referees, and that's how you end up with games where people take cheap shots at each other. So very, very poor job by the referees there. Later on in the game, Pittsburgh's punting. Jalen Carter, the very talented first-round draft pick defensive tackle for the Eagles, decides to punch Connor Hayward in the side of the head and then hit him with like an uppercut under the chin. And this is like right at the snap of the ball.
Yep.
A penalty was thrown on it, but they assessed it for after the play. It happened right at the snap. Connor Hayward was who was blocking him at the line of scrimmage. It happened right away. This should have been a 15-yard penalty that would have given Pittsburgh an automatic first down. Instead, they assess it afterwards when the ball was down at the 3-yard line or the 4-yard line. So it was like a 1-yard penalty. And it should have been 15 and an automatic first down for the Steelers and a drive continuance. So those two situations, the rest of them in the game, I don't really care about as much. But when one player punches another player and you on purpose do everything you can to either ignore it or minimize the penalty so that it doesn't even matter, that's just grossly mishandled by the referees. And it's a good thing they're not division rivals, because if they were division rivals and they had to play again, it would be a very ugly game. If these two teams somehow meet in the Super Bowl, I would not be surprised 1 second if it gets really dirty really fast. I'm not condoning that. It's just that's the kind of thing that happens when referees don't hold people accountable and turn the eye on one team and not the other.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was not close. It was not like these penalties should have been such a such an easy call to call one penalty against somebody in that scuffle, or realize that happened, that hit happened during the play. There's just so many issues that I had with the refereeing in this game that I really hope the league does something about it. I just don't see it happening. And it's really unfortunate because this is going to do exactly what you said. It's going to lead to problems. It's going to lead to bigger issues that, again, unfortunately, and this is the kind of game that makes me question whether or not the league is rigged. And I hate that. I hate the even thought of that, because I like watching football. I like seeing teams combat and fight and, have to come up with strategic ways to defeat another team. And this just takes away from it when you watch a team that Eagles probably still would have won had you made those calls correctly, but we would have seen better football. We would have seen,
it would have been closer.
Yeah. And so that's just
because we're at least getting a field goal on the one drive.
Yeah. And again, I'm not fighting for that to have Pittsburgh lose by less points. I'm fighting for that to see fair, equal play from both sides, and the play call, and it was just a mess all around. Let's bounce back and talk about this game, break down some players, break down some stats. Russell Wilson's box score doesn't look very bad, but his overall performance was very, very bad. 14 of 22 for 128 yards with a touchdown, no interception. It looks like it was just a quiet game for him until you parlay that with the rushing attack that was non-existent. The team as a whole averaged 3.3 yards per carry, and that's with a 8-yard rush by Justin Fields accounted into that as well. Just very, very poor play out of the entire offensive skill group, in my opinion. And I shouldn't say that about the wide receivers. The wide receivers weren't given much chance. Ben Skoranek made a good play. Calvin Austin made a couple good plays. Pat Freiermuth made a great, phenomenal catch in the end zone. It's just, and Mike Williams had a chance to make a play on a deep ball that was just slightly overthrown by Russell. So it's unfortunate that the game went down that way. But again, I just hope to see drastic improvement going into next week.
Yeah, and I'm with you completely on this. I think it's a bad game from Russ. A lot of it has to do with poor protection from the offensive line. Calvin Austin, you got to give credit to him, right? 5 targets, 5 catches, 65 yards. That's a 31-yarder where the linebacker's all over him, and he somehow comes up with that ball falling to the ground on his back. I just thought Calvin was awesome in this game. The second quarter, Pat Freiermuth was dominant, and then they just didn't go to him at all in the second half of the game. Very, very frustrating there. And that one play to Skoranek on the sideline was a pretty nice throw. And he's just got a nose for getting yards after catch. He doesn't shy away from contact, and I really like that about the guy. I'm looking forward to hopefully. No, not at all. Not at all. We haven't seen a guy that looks for contact like this since
Heath Miller. Hines Ward and Heath Miller, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm only using Hines because of the wide receiver comparison. Yep. But I'm not saying that he's a Hines Ward receiver. I'm just saying that he loves the block and he loves to look for contact. And that's a tremendous thing in a wide receiver. So I think some of these wide receivers actually, when given the opportunity, presented themselves pretty well. But I think that Russ was playing from a dirty pocket most of the night, and that makes it very, very difficult.
And I would argue dirty pocket and bad play calling. Like if you have the dirty pocket the way that we did, change the play calling, fix something, add an extra blocker, put an extra offensive lineman in there, allow a tight end to stay in and block, allow Jaylen Warren or
keep the running back in to be a personal protector, something.
Stop dropping him off so that, Russell has a safe place to go to. Like, no.
Yeah.
Give Russell time to find someone deeper downfield. It's just frustrating. Just very
he didn't really get a chance to do the moon ball thing in this game. And I know we didn't have our best deep ball guy in this game to be a higher success rate, but he didn't have the time to throw that ball deep.
Nope. But again, that's why I go back. That's why I'm more heavy on the play calling than on Russell. I don't think this was a horrible game for Russell. Russell was credited with a fumble, although it wasn't his fault. Najee Harris completely whiffed on the pitch.
The toss,
so unfortunately, Unfortunately, that goes down as a fumble for Russell because Najee never had control of it. But just unfortunate to see, man. What a horrible game from Najee. 6 carries for 14 yards, 2.3 average, and then he had 1 catch for 7 yards, which was sure, it is what it is. Just I don't know what it is. I don't know how you fix this. It's play calling 110% in my mind. It's play calling, scheming. It's game planning against the defense you're going up against. Pittsburgh comes out and tries to play the same exact style of football against every team they play. And against some of them, guess what? It doesn't work. You have to change game plays with different teams. And so I'm just frustrated. You want to talk offensive line?
Yeah, I think I touched base a bit on it earlier in the game. I felt like Dan Moore was pretty atrocious. I feel like Isaac Seumalo's play is really struggling as the season's going on. Broderick Jones up and down, but I feel like he's been better than Dan Moore the last 4 or 5 weeks. And then I like a lot of what I see out of Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick. At times, those guys are having issues as well, but they seem to be way more consistent in a positive manner than what we're getting from the left side of the line right now. So not anything substantial there, but they just got to do a better job of creating holes and executing those double teams, passing off in pass protection and helping each other out. And it's just, when was the last time you saw somebody in a one-on-one on a pass blocking situation and somebody came over and cleaned up the defender? I don't think I've seen it all year.
Maybe once early.
But, I think I should rephrase. I've seen Darnell do it. But he might be the only one.
Yeah.
And he's not an offensive lineman.
It's unfortunate, that's for sure. Switching over to the defensive line, because I have nothing left to add to that offense. I'm very impressed with Frazier and McCormick, and I wish Fatani was healthy to see him in action as well and get Broderick back on the left side. But let's talk about this defensive front, because it was kind of quiet outside of Cam Hayward being a pretty disruptive person. I thought Keanu Benton was disruptive, just didn't make the big play. There was no big moment for him that I was kind of expecting. Obviously, as far as sacks go, the defensive line did not get what I wanted, which was a sack or a few. All the sacks came from the outside linebackers. Montravius Adams had that penalty. He did have a tackle for loss, but other than that, just a quiet game from this defensive front.
Yep, quiet, but the one thing I have to give them credit for is they held Saquon Barkley to 3.4 yards per carry, which this season is a monumental thing. Saquon has been extremely disruptive in dang near every game all year long. So you can tell that was a focal point for Pittsburgh coming into this game. And I think that's why the Eagles attacked Elandon Roberts in the pass game early on, because they probably assumed, hey, Elandon's going to be out there to try to stop Saquon, so let's attack him with the tight ends because he's not that great in pass coverage. So I think that's where we got that issue. I was impressed with Dean Lowry. I thought Dean did a great job of not getting pushed back at the line, of also collapsing the pocket from the interior. He didn't get to the quarterback, but consistently drove his guy back into the quarterback's lap so that he couldn't come forward, which is part of how you end up getting those sacks from the outside linebackers. So I actually thought in a small sample size, I liked better what I saw out of Dean Lowry in this game than maybe I've seen from Larry Ogunjobi all season long. And he's not a long-term solution. He's like 29, 30 years old. He's not that dude, but he might be a higher level guy than Larry Ogunjobi at this point in their careers.
Yeah. Cleveland was the only other team this year to hold him under 4 yards per carry, and they held him to 2.6. So good job for them. But again, he's against the Giants. He averaged 10.4 yards a carry. Like, he's been demolishing teams this year. Against the Rams, it was 9.8. Against New Orleans, it was 8.6. Like, they're big numbers. Against Carolina, it was 6.2. Like, big numbers from him. So I agree. Very, very proud of the defense for holding him to 65?
So right around there, yeah.
Yeah, 65 yards rushing.
19 carries. Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, impressive.
Not bad at all.
Kind of up and down.
Linebackers.
Yeah, let's go to the outside linebackers, right? So It's the highlight of the group. It's been the highlight of this team all season long. It's been the best play. And TJ just having himself a remarkable day, right? Two sacks, 2 forced fumbles. Alex Highsmith got a sack in the game. I would have loved to have seen a little bit more help from Nick Herbig and Preston Smith. I felt like they had a very, very minor role in this game and really didn't make a splash. But TJ and Alex showing why they're one of the best pass rushing duos in the entire NFL right now. So just, I thought a very, very good game. TJ finally got some one-on-one opportunities, and even against Lane Johnson, who's one of the best, if not the best right tackle in the entire NFL, not even he can handle him one-on-one, and mentioned something about it in an interview post-game, that that was everything he could do to hold him to just 2 sacks, and that he's one of the best football players he's ever played against.
Yeah, just unfortunate again that we couldn't do more other than those guys. And again, I mean, here's the thing. Those guys did a phenomenal job. Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt coming up with 3 sacks. That's huge out of any group. If you got 3 sacks out of the interior lineman or interior defensive lineman, or actually defensive lineman as a whole, which is what I was aiming for, that'd be huge. Out of the linebackers, that's huge. So I'm really, really proud of that. I wish we would have been able to see some more pressure from Nick Herbig. That was unfortunate not to see that quite as much, especially when TJ went down with that injury briefly. We'll talk about that later. Just hoping that something changes on the defense. I feel like we're allowing too much. I don't know if it's not time, because we're getting to the quarterback. We're breaking down a pocket. Jalen Hurts is one of the more athletic quarterbacks we went up against, but man, it just felt like we couldn't stop him from making plays, even with getting to the quarterback 3 times.
Yeah.
So, middle linebacker group, we talked about Landon Roberts a little bit earlier. He was horrible in coverage, as per usual. Patrick Queen had a very good game. He had 1 quarterback hit, 11 total tackles. Peyton Wilson had 6 tackles and a pass breakup. And then Landon Roberts had only 4 tackles. Again, I just want to see more out of Mark Robinson's technically a middle linebacker, and he had a forced fumble on special teams. So that's big shout out to him as well. I want to see more out of Landon Roberts if he's going to be getting the playing time that he's getting. And it sucks, though, because he makes good plays on runs, but he's just it's a Vince Williams all over again. He's an absolute, liability in pass coverage.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is, what they did with Vince Williams back then was, if it was a pass play, Vince blitzed. And Vince got 7 sacks in a season one time because of that. Landon Roberts is actually good as a blitzing middle linebacker in a pass rushing situation, just not getting the usage that way. So to me, like, Patrick Queen got a ton of tackles in this game, but there were a couple of times where he just didn't get the guy to the ground. It was just short of the sticks, got powered through. The guy got a couple extra yards and got to the chains. So I want to see Patrick Queen playing with a little bit more force and aggression in this upcoming game versus the Ravens, and I think he'll absolutely do so because he's highly motivated to look good against them. I thought this was one of Peyton Wilson's best games of the season. Almost got an interception in the end zone. That incomplete pass, that pass breakup that you mentioned that he had, it was a toe tap situation on a broken play where Jalen Hurts rolls to the right, throws to the deep right corner of the end zone, and Peyton Wilson jumps it and just barely couldn't keep his feet in. Almost got an interception on the play, but made one heck of a play on that ball, really showing off his athleticism. And a couple of times he got to be the guy that hit the running back, the ball carrier, whoever it may have been, and stop their momentum from being able to get that first down. So I thought that was kind of a difference between the two guys. I thought Peyton Wilson playing with a little bit more force in this game than I thought Patrick Queen, but I am optimistic of the duo of the two of them being full-time next to each other in future games and future seasons.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, hoping that they can stick around for a little while. I'd love to see the athleticism and the talent that we have there continue to grow. Corners, Dante Jackson had a horrible game. Joey Porter had a quiet game. We talked about the couple breakups and the big plays, but there were still times where he was getting beat. The one play, however, should have been a penalty against. There was 2 penalties that should have been called on AJ Brown. The one was a push off on a quick slant that he pushed Joey Porter off and got some separation that way. And the other one we talked about earlier, which again, Joey Porter could have picked that ball off if he wasn't tackled to the ground prior to. But I'm not impressed with this quarterback group anymore. As a unit, as a whole. I mean, Beanie Bishop's making plays and not afraid to tackle guys. James Pierre had to come in, unfortunately, and unfortunately for that, he was a liability. It felt like he was at least making tackles. Dante Jackson was whiffing on guys in the wide open field. Really, really want to see Corey Trice come back healthy and see what he has to offer.
Yeah. You hate to see anybody go down to injury, but when Dante Jackson went down with that back injury in this game, the bleeding stopped in the secondary because he was just getting annihilated play after play after play. Not only was he getting beat, he couldn't get guys to the ground afterwards. So it was just a horrible, horrible game for Dante Jackson. I thought that Joey Porter was quiet in the first half because they just weren't targeting him. They're just going after Dante Jackson every time, no matter who it was he was matched up against. And then he really stepped his game up in the second half of the game. But the Cam Sutton experiment is not going great, in my opinion. He's not making any splash plays. He's not really contributing in a positive manner much at all. Beanie Bishop is struggling to develop more, but at least is showing good physicality. Did get a fumble recovery in this game. So I like some of what I see with him, but again, we need to see what Corey Trice has, man. James Pierre, I don't think is going to develop into a starter caliber outside corner at this stage in his career. I think he's been in the league for 4 or 5 years or something.
Yeah.
And I thought that there were moments where James Pierre looked decent in this game, which is better than what Dante Jackson was the entire game. So it's tough, man, because when you look at the game, when you watch the game, man, Dante can't cover anybody right now, but he's getting all these interceptions. So the casual fan thinks that Dante Jackson's a good corner when he's not doing well, man. He's not at all. And you're better off moving on from him. But then that puts another position where you have to prioritize it highly in free agency or in the draft.
Yeah. Yeah. And quite frankly, at this point, outside of what, maybe a future quarterback, depending on if we keep Justin or Russell and how long we keep them. Outside of that, I almost feel like the secondary is the biggest concern right now.
I think D-line too.
But even there, I feel like with the guys that we have on the team, they can make plays enough to stop or hinder opponents from making plays. Dante Jackson is an absolute liability. James Pierre can't stop anybody until they have the ball. I mean, it's really Joey Porter versus the whole team right now because all of Dante Jackson's interceptions have come because of him being at the right place at the right time, not because of him making a good play. He just hasn't dropped a ball. James Pierre has one interception, kind of the same thing.
It was an overthrow.
Beanie Bishop has 2 picks on Aaron Rodgers, and the one was actually really good. I'd rather see more Beanie Bishop and let him grow into that role and struggle than watching someone else try to do something that they haven't been able to do their whole career. I don't know. I feel like if Corey Trice doesn't come out and prove he can do something, it's got to be D-line and corner, top 2 needs. I'm comfortable with DeShon Elliott moving forward for a year or two. Minka's Minka in the safety room, but man, that secondary in that cornerback room is. I thought we had depth. It appears not.
Yeah, because we were counting on Corey Trice, and then we were counting on the other guy who's not on the team anymore, right?
And Cam Sutton, we
were hoping Cam was really going to help out, and maybe he still will. Maybe he gets more comfortable. Maybe he gets in better shape as the season goes along here. I don't know. But right now, what we're seeing from Dante Jackson has to be upgraded. Has to be. Yeah, when you go against the Chiefs in a couple of weeks here, who the hell do you think Patrick Mahomes is going to throw at? He's going to throw at whoever Dante Jackson is covering, just like Jalen Hurts just did. If you think they have not figured that out already, you're crazy. Yeah, that ball's gonna get thrown at Dante Jackson 25 times in that game.
Yep, it's not gonna be a good time. Let's bounce over to the safety room. Demonte Casey got demolished one play, thought he broke a shoulder. That was crazy.
Me too.
Minka had a good run tackle at one point. Nothing really crazy that I've seen from him, unfortunately. Again, Minka just having a very, very, very quiet year, which is crazy. Other than that, nothing really popped out of me from that safety room.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you. I was very worried about Demonte KZ filling in for Deshaun Elliott because of the physicality difference. And KZ is very physical for his size, but at the same point in time, he's only like 185, 190 pounds. And Elliott's like a good 205, 210 and a thickly built dude. So I knew that wasn't going to go well. And when Saquon ran him over, he came up holding his shoulder. I thought, oh God, now we're really in trouble.
Yeah, that was going to be very concerning. What's next? Miles Killebrew at that point?
Yeah, Miles Killebrew came on the field. He absolutely did. Because that was all that's left. They didn't call up Eric Rowe. I thought for sure they would have called up Eric Rowe from the practice squad since Elliott was down, but they didn't bother. So, we'll see what the decision is in future weeks. Maybe the highlight this week was the special teams, Cody. Chris Boswell, perfect once again.
2 for 2 on field goals and 1 for 1 on an extra point.
And Mark Robinson with an awesome hit on Cooper DeJean, causing a fumble, giving Pittsburgh good field position.
We got a field goal out of after we went -8 yards.
Yeah, I mean,
it might have been a -11 actually.
Yeah, special teams was the best unit of the three, I think, in this game.
By far.
Yeah.
Corliss Waitman, 5 punts for 215 yards, 2 of them inside the 20. Cordell Patterson actually averaged 32.5 yards per kick return, just unfortunately took them all out of the end zone, so we didn't really get any yards. And then no punt returns registered. Yeah, just unfortunate the way the game turned out, and hopefully they can turn some things around. The offensive, if I was Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith, I'd be having long discussions this week about what the problem is in the offense. Go back and look at tape from all these games where we're having unsuccessful drives early in the game. What are we doing wrong? Oh, we're running it on every first down in the first half or first quarter or first 3 drives. Let's run some play action, dump it off to Darnell 5 yards downfield, let him put a shoulder down and get a first down. Like, build some momentum. Don't be afraid to throw the ball early. Stop trying to force the run. Keep a keep a running back or tight end in the block. Like, it's not rocket science. It's really not.
Yeah.
And if it was, you can call Josh Dobbs when he's a free agent again. Like, figure it out.
Yeah, I think it's no coincidence that back-to-back weeks with George Pickens out, the offense struggled heavily. And also in both of those weeks, Darnell Washington was not involved in the passing game at all. And I'm not saying that that's like a huge effect because he's usually like 1 catch, 2 on a really good week. But it's a game changer when he catches that ball in the open field because everybody on the defense says, oh, crap, because no one wants to tackle him. Nope. You should be throwing to this guy 4 or 5 times a game, every game, just because he makes the other guys pee their pants when he's in the open field with the ball in his hand.
Darnell Washington this year is averaging 10.7 yards per reception.
That's it. That's another Pittsburgh Steelers first down.
Excuse me, I apologize. That was wrong. That's per game. 10.7 yards per game. I'm curious to see what the actual stats are. Here we go. This year he is averaging. Well, there's no average per reception. That's dumb.
It's goofy.
I thought it was going to be a big number. I mean, I'm sure it is. It's probably still that. But unfortunately, I mean, his last few.
How many yards does he have?
I'm looking. Overview. He has.
Right
here. 192 on 18 catches. Yeah, that's 10.7 yards. It says average per game, but it's average per reception. So
or they both match because he's only getting like one a game. So
yeah, I mean it's just crazy.
yeah,
It's just crazy to me that he's that limited in the passing game.
mm-hmm.
Because here's what you're doing. Here's what you're doing by not including him in the passing game. You're letting the other defense know that he's not someone you have to plan for.
Yep.
You want them to have to prepare for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens on these teams that are just stacked offensively, which quite frankly, I think Pittsburgh is, but they're not utilizing them correctly. Arthur Smith is not putting these players in opportunities to make plays. And so,
for an
I
offense that's supposed to be very tight end centric and very heavy usage of the tight ends, we're not seeing it. And when Pat Freiermuth's involved, he gets in the end zone. So I don't know. I thought that's what you wanted to do when you're playing a football game.
Year. Six touchdown catches for Pat Freiermuth this year.
He's having a nice season. He's just not getting the ball much.
The tight ends have 8 as a whole. Connor Hayward has 1. Darnell has 1, and he has 6. Who knows? Injury updates. Dante Jackson did have a back injury. I don't believe we saw him come back into the game. It was James Pierre for the rest of the game.
He did not.
TJ Watt with the ankle injury. That was scary because it was a non-contact. And he was driving. It felt like it might have been something pulled or maybe a fracture. And so waiting to get an update on that. But Mike Tomlin did say he was seen walking comfortably after the game. What you got?
X-rays are negative on it, which is a great thing. And in the Mike Tomlin press conference today, he mentioned that he saw TJ walking around comfortably, which means he didn't see a noticeable limp or anything. He mentioned that he is expecting TJ to be able to play versus the Baltimore Ravens. Also said at this stage, he would not rule out anyone who's on the injury list from being able to play versus them. So at this point last week, George Pickens was already, nope, he's not playing. Larry Ogunjobi was a doubtful. Same with Deshaun Elliott. He's leaving the door open for all these guys for this week. We'll get you a better feel later on in the week when we do the preview to the Ravens show. We'll let you know what's going on as far as the latest on all of that. But it looks like there's a very good chance of all of these guys being healthy enough to play in some capacity in this upcoming game versus the Ravens. But you need all hands on deck. By the way, Pittsburgh is officially in the playoffs.
Yep, they did clinch playoffs, not because they won, obviously, because they didn't. They lost.
The Colts and the Dolphins lost, so we're in.
The next 3 games are massive, and I think Mike Tomlin understands you need to win the division because we do not want to play a playoff football game in Baltimore. I would rather play a playoff football game in Kansas City than in Baltimore, quite frankly, just because of the environment for Pittsburgh, the rivalry there. I would 100% rather see Kansas City at home than Baltimore at home, just because of the division. But again, I don't want to see either of them. I want to see.
Yeah, Kansas City is the loudest stadium in the NFL. You don't want to see them in the playoffs.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I think Mike Tomlin's going to try really hard to win the division because he doesn't want to have to travel to Baltimore in the playoffs. So yeah, Ravens next Sunday at 4:30, and then we have a Christmas
Saturday
afternoon. Yeah, Saturday Christmas game against the Chiefs, and we play the Bengals on probably the 5th. That's what it says tentatively. There's no time set yet. I think it depends on playoff implications and stuff like that. So, well, it's going to be a busy few weeks for Pittsburgh and us here at Steelers by the Lake. We can't thank you guys enough for listening and watching. If you're on YouTube, remember to like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Subscribe, ring the bell. It's free. It doesn't cost you a thing. Don't forget the 5-star reviews on my podcast. Make James very happy. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, signing off.
Peace.